Hey, I'm Nate Savage and welcome to video 4 on how to play the guitar. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how to strum and get your strumming hand up to speed so you can start strumming the chords that you learned in the last lesson and start making some real music. I'm going to start this lesson off by giving you some technique tips for strumming. And technique can be pretty subjective, so you're going to have to experiment with these tips I'm going to give you and see what works for you. From there, we're going to go over something called the constant strumming technique, and this is going to be great for you to know because it's going to enable you to play a lot of the strumming patterns in your favorite songs. And finally, I'm going to teach you some of the most essential strumming patterns that you're going to need to know as a newer guitar player. Let's get into some of these technique tips that I was talking about. The first technique tip that I want to give you for your strumming is just to relax. If you're tense when you strum, it's going to do a couple things. It's going to open the doorways for some potential injuries, and it's going to make your playing sound stiff and not as fluid or musical as it could be. So if you feel any tension creeping up in your arms, shoulders, neck, back, whatever when you're playing, just stop, calm down, start over. The second tip that I want to give you will help you to stay relaxed when you strum, and that is to not just lock your wrist and strum from your elbow. What you want to do is have a nice fluid motion, kind of like you have something stuck to your finger, like some honey and a feather on there, and you just kind of trying to flick it off, right? My wrist is moving, it's fluid, but my elbow is also helping out some too. That's a great motion to think about when you're strumming the guitar. Next thing I want to talk to you about is really subjective, and that's the way you grip the pick. It's going to be a little bit different for everyone. So I'll just give you some general tips. Take the pick in front of you, stick it out like that, stick your thumb on it, and then just come down on that pick as naturally as you can with your index finger. Your grip may have a curved in finger like that, or your grip may have your index finger pointing directly with the pick, or the entire other way around like that. It just really depends on what's comfortable for you. A lot of times when I'm strumming a lot, I'll grip the pick with two fingers just to keep it from flying out of my hands. It just gives me a little more control and allows me to stay relaxed too, so you might want to try that. The next little technique tip that I want to talk about is the angle that you're going to be strumming with. Some people have the pick angled upwards like this, some people have it just parallel with the strings, and some people have it kind of down like that. It really doesn't matter. You're going to have to experiment with your pick grip, and that's kind of maybe dictate the angle of your picking or your strumming like this. So maybe up like this, maybe more parallel with the strings, or maybe pointed down like this. It's really up to you, so experiment with these technique tips that I've given you to come up with your own unique technique. And for those of you out there who are thinking to yourself, I don't have a pick or I don't want to use a pick, that's totally fine. You can use your fingers to strum. What I would do is just pretend like you're holding a pick and then just strum with your index finger and your thumb. Okay, now we need to talk about something called the constant strumming technique. And like I said, if you understand what this is, it's going to enable you to figure out a lot of the strumming patterns in your favorite songs. The constant strumming technique says that you keep your arm going down, up, down, up, down, up when you're strumming, regardless of whether or not you actually dig into the strings on a down or an up stroke. So to help illustrate this, let's get into our first important strumming pattern that you need to know. It's really simple. It's an all downstroke strumming pattern, and it really demonstrates the constant strumming technique really well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to be playing with a metronome, and you're going to hear the click. That's going to be our beat or our pulse or our quarter notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to be in 4/4 time, so each measure is going to have 4 counts. So count with me: 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is our quarter note pulse. And what I'm going to be doing, I'm just going to play a G chord. And our first strumming pattern, like I said, is just on quarter notes using all downstrokes. But check this out. I'm going to play that for you. Now, did you see every time I made a downstroke, I had to come back up without hitting the strings, without strumming the strings. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. That is the heart of the constant strumming technique. I'm keeping my down, up going constantly with the beat. But for this strumming pattern, I'm only digging into the strings or strumming the strings on the downstrokes. And I'm keeping my arm relaxed, my wrist isn't locked, I've been working on my pick technique and angle and grip and all that stuff. So remember all these things when you try this. You're gonna see at the bottom of the screen the counting 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And under those numbers, you're gonna see downstroke symbols. They look like a little upside down U. Those are just letting you know that you should strum down on each beat. Here's what this strumming pattern will sound like. So I was playing to a metronome there that was set to 70 beats per minute. If you need a metronome track, you can download the one that goes with this lesson to help you practice along with these strumming patterns that we're going to be learning. This next strumming pattern is going to introduce you to upstroke strumming. It's still going to be just a regular quarter note strumming pattern, just strumming on the beat 1, 2, 3, 4. But we're going to be alternating down and upstroke. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's a couple of trouble areas that usually come up when students try to start doing upstrokes. Number one, they feel like they can't quite get the pick all the way through the strings, or the pick ends up flying out of their hands because they just don't have the control that they need. A couple of tips for you for your upstrokes is this right here. Only strum with enough of the pick, just the tip of the pick, enough to make the string sound. If you dig in with too much of the pick, you're probably going to have that pick fly out of your hands. It's going to be harder to get through the string. So just enough of the pick to make the string sound. Also, check this out. When I downstroke through a chord, I generally hit all 6 strings. When I do an upstroke, I generally only hit the top 3 to 5 strings. So don't feel like you have to hit all 6 strings with your upstrokes. So try that. Just do some upstrokes on their own. Stay relaxed. Make sure you're only using as much of the pick as you need to make it sound, just the tip. And just be conscious that you don't have to hit all 6 strings on your upstrokes. So let me play this strumming pattern to a click for you. It's going to be down, up, just over and over again, just on the quarter notes, the beat. The next strumming pattern that we're going to use is really similar to the last one. It's just alternating down and upstrokes. But we're going to raise the stakes a little bit. Instead of just using quarter notes, just staying on the beat, we're going to use eighth notes. That means we're going to have, instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to put ands in between each number. So we have twice as many strums, right? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the deal with this strumming pattern is you're going to be strumming twice as much, but your numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all going to be downstrokes, and the ands are all going to be upstrokes. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Here's what this will sound like with a metronome. So do you see how that's twice as much strumming as we had because we're counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and lots of strumming going on. If that's too fast for you, you can download a different metronome track that's a little bit slower than 70 beats per minute, whatever you need to get this down. This last strumming pattern is the strumming pattern we're going to be using in the song we're going to be learning in the next lesson. And it's an 8th note strumming pattern just like we did on the last strumming pattern, but this one makes use of the constant strumming technique. We're not going to be digging in to the strings on every count. So if you have your counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, what you're going to do is play on the 1, your downstroke, 1, and you're going to leave that and out. You're going to leave 2 out, that downstroke, and you're going to come up with an upstroke on the and of 2 and actually play that. On 3, you're going to have a downstroke, leave that out, on the and of 3, another upstroke and actually dig in that time. And then on 4, you have a downstroke. And you're gonna leave the and of 4 out. And that may sound complicated to you, but try to think about it as just leaving some of the strums out when you keep your constant strumming motion going. So you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Just do that over and over again, really slowly, really methodical at first, and eventually you'll get the rhythm down for it, and it'll feel really natural too. So. Here's how it'll sound with the metronome. And at a more realistic tempo, this is what it'll sound like. Again, this is a lot of information for one lesson. Don't feel like you have to have all this down today. Just remember the technique tips I gave you. Go through them. Stay relaxed. Don't lock your wrist. Work on your picking angle and pick grip, all that stuff. Go through each one of these strumming patterns. Get them down individually. Make sure you have the last one down particularly, because that's the one we're going to use in the next lesson when we learn your first song. If you have any questions, leave them here in the comments and I'll get back to you. See you in the next lesson.